You have built your entire life around a performance for an audience that is no longer watching. You wake up every day and put on the heavy armor of expectations. You say the right words. You play the correct role. You make yourself useful to the people around you. But lately, there is a cold draft blowing through your life. You look around and realize that the crowd is thinned. The people you thought were standing beside you are distracted. The validation you used to receive has dried up. There is no one reaching out to check on you. There is no one offering you a clear map for what to do next. Everything appears functional on the surface. You still go to work. You still pay your bills. You still go through the motions of existing. But deep within your chest, there is a profound and terrifying quiet. You feel entirely unsupported. You feel as though the ground beneath you has dissolved into vapor. And in that state of suspension, a terrifying question begins to echo in your mind. If no one is watching and no one is coming to help, how will you survive? We are rarely taught how to exist as singular individuals. We are conditioned from birth to see ourselves through the eyes of the group. We learn to measure our worth by the reactions we provoke in others. But there is a philosophy that views this abandonment entirely differently. It suggests that this painful isolation is not a punishment. It is the exact condition required for you to wake up. We are going to walk through 7 distinct stages of internal transformation. We will look at what actually happens in your mind when all external support is removed. We will explore why this agonizing state is the only true foundation for authentic power. You are about to face the silence you have been running from. Number 1. The collapse of the invisible savior. There is a secret belief you have carried with you since childhood. You might not even realize it is there until it is suddenly ripped away. It is the quiet, desperate belief that someone is coming to save you. You move through periods of your life where you are stagnant. You are not completely failing, but you are certainly not thriving. You feel a persistent friction in your daily routine. Everything feels harder than it should be, but instead of making a radical change, you wait. You enter a state of psychological holding. You believe that if things get bad enough, an external force will intervene. A mentor will finally recognize your hidden genius. A perfect partner will arrive and heal your emotional wounds. A sudden opportunity will fall from the sky and rearrange your circumstances. You hold back a massive portion of your life force because you are waiting for a rescue. This waiting is not a conscious strategy. It is a deeply ingrained coping mechanism. It stems from early moments in your life when you cried out and someone appeared to soothe you. You learned that distress automatically triggers intervention, so you sit in your adult life feeling distressed and you scan the horizon for the rescue ship. But the horizon is empty. The days turn into weeks, and the weeks turn into years. You watch other people move forward while you remain anchored to a fantasy. The profound pain of isolation hits you when you finally realize the truth. The universe has no obligation to save you. There is no intervention scheduled. The silence in the room is absolute. When you first recognize this, it feels like a tragedy. It feels as though you have been forgotten by the world. But this is not a tragedy. It is the collapse of an illusion that has been draining your power for decades. As long as you believe someone else holds the key to your life, you remain a prisoner. You blame bad timing. You blame toxic people. You blame unfair circumstances. You use your waiting as an excuse to avoid taking ultimate responsibility for your existence. But when the illusion of the savior shatters, you are left with nothing but your own 2 hands. You realize that if you want to move the boat, you have to pick up the oars yourself. The despair of realizing no one is coming is the exact fuel you need to stand up. You stop looking out the window. You stop checking your phone for the message that will change your life. You stop deferring your existence to an imaginary tomorrow. You reclaim the immense energy you were wasting on expectation. You bring that energy back into the present moment. You are finally ready to begin. Number 2, the descent into the uncharted self. When you stop looking outward for rescue, your attention has nowhere else to go but inward. This is a terrifying transition. Your entire life has been structured around external distractions. You have used work, relationships, and entertainment to avoid looking at your own mind. You have kept the surface of your life chaotic so you never had to face the depths. But now, the distractions have faded. The external noise has died down. Your attention turns back upon yourself, and you are forced to look at what is there. You do not immediately find peace. Instead, you find a chaotic landscape of buried fears, ignored truths, and fragmented memories. You feel a profound sense of dread. It feels like walking into a dark room in your own house that you never knew existed. Søren Kierkegaard wrote in his book The Sickness Unto Death about this exact crisis of the spirit. He described a condition he called despair. He did not mean sadness or temporary depression. He meant the deep spiritual sickness of refusing to be your true self. Kierkegaard observed that we desperately avoid standing alone as unique individuals. Being an individual is a terrifying responsibility. It requires you to face the eternal, to face your own conscience without the shield of the crowd. So, we try to cure our anxiety by losing ourselves in the masses. We adopt the opinions of the group. We chase the desires that society tells us to chase. We try to become a copy of someone else, completely abandoning our own authentic existence. Kierkegaard warned that this conformity is the deepest form of despair. You trade the infinite potential of your soul for the cheap comfort of fitting in. You become a stranger to yourself. But when isolation forces you out of the crowd, the cure for this despair begins. You are stripped of the masks you wore to please other people. You are forced to look at the massive gap between who you pretend to be and who you actually are. This causes immense psychological friction. You begin to question everything you have ever valued. You wonder how many of your goals were actually just planted in your head by other people. You wonder how many of your beliefs were simply absorbed from your environment. You feel empty because you are realizing that much of what filled you was never yours to begin with. This emptiness is not a void. It is a clearing. It is the necessary removal of false structures. You are sweeping the floor of your own mind. You are preparing the ground to build something real. You must have the courage to walk through this dark room without turning on the television. You must sit with the discomfort of not knowing who you are anymore. This is the silence you have been running from. Number 3, acting without the gaze of the audience. As you step deeper into this isolation, a very practical problem arises. You lose your motivation to do almost everything. You try to pursue your old goals, but they feel hollow. You try to engage in your old routines, but they feel like carrying heavy stones. You realize that a massive portion of your drive was entirely dependent on being witnessed. You did not act because you loved the action. You acted because you craved the applause. You worked hard because you wanted the praise of your boss. You dressed well because you wanted the admiration of strangers. You maintained relationships because you wanted to be seen as a good person. Your entire system of motivation was a transaction with the external world. Action equals reward. Effort equals recognition. But when you are alone, the audience is gone. The transaction is broken. You perform an action, and there is no echo. You accomplish a task, and there is no praise. Your brain experiences a severe drop in the chemicals that usually reward your behavior. You feel a profound lethargy. You look at your projects and think, if no one ever sees this, what is the point? This is a critical crossroad in your development. Most people panic at this stage. They rush out to find a new audience. They post their life online just to get a digital nod of approval. They manufacture drama just to force people to look at them. But if you resist the urge to perform, something remarkable begins to happen. You begin to discover the concept of inner necessity. You start to act, not for the reward, but for the inherent value of the action itself. You clean your room, not because someone is coming over, but because you respect your environment. You do your work not because your boss is watching, but because you take pride in competence. You create art not for the gallery, but because the idea demands to be brought into the physical world. You shift your entire center of gravity from the outside to the inside. This transition is painfully slow. It requires you to endure the absolute lack of external validation. But every time you complete a task in total secrecy, you forge an unbreakable link within yourself. You teach your mind that you are capable of moving forward in the dark. You teach your spirit that your actions have value even when they are invisible. You slowly become immune to manipulation. Because if you do not need their praise to start, you do not need their permission to continue. You become a self-generating force. Number 4, the death of the mirrored reflection. If you can sustain your actions in secret, a deeper layer of your false self begins to shed. You begin to realize that your very sense of identity has been tied to your utility. You have defined yourself by what you do for other people. You are the reliable friend. You are the obedient employee. You are the peacemaker in the family. You have used these roles as a substitute for a true personality. You have mistaken the function you serve in the machine for the essence of who you are. When your isolation deepens, these roles evaporate. There are no conflicts to mediate. There are no friends calling you with their crises. There is no one demanding your labor. And suddenly, you feel entirely worthless. You look in the mirror, and you do not know who is looking back at you. You realize you have been living as a reflection. You only existed when someone else shone a light on you. You only felt real when you saw yourself reflected in the gratitude or need of another person. Without them needing you, you feel like a ghost. This is the most painful part of the transition. It feels like an ego death. You want to reach out and force someone to need you again. You want to rescue someone just so you can feel important. You want to submit to someone just so you have a defined role to play. But you must stay in the void. You must resist the urge to slip back into the comfortable masks of the past. You are learning to separate your inherent value from your external utility. Your worth does not depend on how much labor you can extract from your bones for someone else. Your existence is valid simply because you are here. You must learn to stand in the center of the room and simply be. No titles, no descriptions, no functions, just a quiet, breathing presence. When the mirror is shattered, you are finally forced to look directly at the source. This is the silence you have been running from. If you are standing in this quiet transition right now, I want you to leave a short phrase in the comments. Write the phrase, "I'm still here." Do not write it for me. Do not write it for the other people reading. Write it to prove to yourself that you exist outside of the performance. Number 5, the return of your scattered focus. As the old identities fall away, you will notice a strange shift in your physical and mental energy. For your entire life, your energy has been bleeding out into the environment. You have sent your focus outward into 1,000 different directions. Worrying about an argument from 3 years ago, stressing about an upcoming social event, obsessing over the subtle changes in someone's tone of voice, caring deeply about the opinions of strangers. Your vital force has been diluted. You have spread yourself so thin that you have become transparent. But when you truly accept your isolation, all of these invisible threads are cut. You no longer care what the crowd thinks, because you are no longer in the crowd. You no longer obsess over your social standing, because you have walked away from the hierarchy. Suddenly, the energy that used to flow outward has nowhere to go. It hits a wall and turns back upon you. It begins to pool inside your mind and body. At first, this accumulation of energy feels highly uncomfortable. It feels like pressure. It feels like a low-grade anxiety humming beneath your skin. You are used to immediately venting this pressure by talking, scrolling, or distracting yourself. But you must hold it. You must allow the energy to gather. This is not a loss of momentum. It is the charging of a battery that has been depleted for decades. As the energy accumulates, your focus becomes incredibly sharp. The mental fog that used to cloud your days begins to lift. You find yourself able to concentrate on complex thoughts for longer periods of time. You find yourself noticing the small, profound details of your environment that you used to rush past. You are gathering your forces. You are pulling back the scattered pieces of your soul from all the people and places that stole them. You become heavy. You become dense. You are no longer a leaf blown around by the wind of public opinion. You are becoming a stone. This gathered energy is the raw material you will use to forge your new life. But it must be contained before it can be directed. You must learn to sit quietly with your own power. Number 6, sitting in the fire of your own emotions. With your energy gathered and your distractions removed, you will face the ultimate test of your endurance, the rise of pure, unmedicated emotion. In the past, you used other people to regulate your internal temperature. When you felt anger, you immediately called someone to complain. When you felt sadness, you immediately sought comfort. When you felt fear, you immediately asked for reassurance. You used your environment as a thermostat to control your psychological state. But in the quiet of true isolation, the thermostat is broken. You feel a wave of anxiety rising in your chest. There is no one to call. There is no one to assure you that everything will be fine. You feel a crushing wave of grief for the time you have wasted. There is no one to wipe your tears. The emotion hits you with full force, undiluted and raw. Your instinct will be to panic. You will believe that the emotion is going to destroy you. You will think that if you do not escape it, you will lose your mind. But this is exactly where the deepest transformation occurs. You do not run. You do not reach for the chemical comfort of a distraction. You do not reach for the digital comfort of a screen. You sit still. You allow the fire to burn. You observe the physical sensation of the anxiety in your body. You notice the tightness in your throat. You notice the rapid beating of your heart. You watch the emotion rise to its peak, and then, slowly, you watch it begin to fade. It does not destroy you. It passes through you like a storm passing over a mountain. You realize, perhaps for the very first time in your life, that you can survive your own mind. You do not need a container outside of yourself. You are the container. This realization is the birth of true emotional invincibility. When you know that you can sit in the absolute center of your own terror and remain breathing, you lose your fear of the world. No one can threaten you with isolation anymore because you have already survived it. No one can threaten you with rejection because you no longer need their acceptance. You have walked through the fire and realized you are made of a material that does not burn. You have finally listened to the silence you have been running from. Number 7, the emergence of the true individual. When you have endured the collapse of the Savior. When you have faced the dark room of your own despair. When you have broken your addiction to applause. When you have survived the fire of your own raw emotion. Something entirely new is born from the ashes. A quiet, unshakable integration takes place within your mind. You are no longer a collection of reactions to the external world. You are a solid, cohesive self. You walk into a room and you no longer scan the faces of the crowd to figure out who you are supposed to be. You already know who you are. You do not need to announce your presence. You do not need to dominate the conversation to prove your intelligence. You do not need to shrink yourself to make others comfortable. You stand with a quiet gravity that alters the energy of the space around you. People will sense this shift in you, even if they cannot explain it. They will sense that you are no longer playing the game. You have stepped entirely off the board. Kierkegaard believed that the ultimate goal of human existence is to become a single individual, to stand alone before the infinite, taking absolute responsibility for your own life. You have finally reached this point. You make decisions based on a deep internal compass. You pursue your work with a cold, beautiful devotion that requires no external reward. You can love other people more purely now because you no longer need them to complete you. You no longer use people as mirrors or crutches. You appreciate them exactly as they are. You realize that the painful period of isolation was not a deviation from your path. It was the path itself. The silence stripped away everything that was false. The emptiness consumed everything that was weak. What is left is unbreakable. You can go back out into the world now. You can interact with the crowd. You can build new relationships and take on new challenges. But you will never again be absorbed by the masses. You have built a fortress of solitude within your own chest, and no matter what happens in the external world, no matter who comes or who goes, you will never be truly lost again. Because you have finally found the one person you were meant to find, yourself.